Greetings viewers and happy holidays. So I am actually going to be out of commission doing cars for the next several weeks while I am recovering from disc replacement surgery in my neck. Actually 2 discs to be accurate. But what we're going to do is go on light duty and make a couple of videos anyway for the holiday break. The first video, of course, will be this one, which is going to be kind of a special tool review video just in time for Christmas so you can put some things on your wish list. And these are going to be tools that I most depend on all the time, some of which actually, for whatever reason, have never appeared in a video before. So there will be some new ones that you did not know I even had, but I use them all the time, and I'm going to show some of those to you in this video. The second video will be coming up in several days, maybe a week or so, and that video is going to be a special sort of a where are they now feature. This of course means we are going to bring back some of the more popular repair videos and also some of the more controversial ones as well, and review them, look at the status of those cars now, see if some of the repairs held up or not, and if the cars are even still in operation at all. And also, this will be a great opportunity in that video for me to give you some behind the scenes information as well that you were not aware of during the filming that will be of interest, especially to a lot of the more hardcore, long-time viewers of the channel. Those are the ones that are going to really appreciate this Where Are They Now special. So if you have any questions about any specific repairs in the past, or the status of any vehicles for the Where Are They Now, or just general questions about Schrodinger's box, you can ask them here in this segment, and then I will cover those questions in that video when it comes available. So this is the place to ask those questions, and I will answer them on the next video. Right now, though, let's go ahead and get started with some really light stocking stuffers. Anyone who's watched this channel for any length of time knows that I very commonly use these back probes here as well as these alligator test clips for doing different measurements on electronic components and PCM components, applying voltage to circuits to test components, things like that. And a lot of people actually ask me where I get these and why I particularly use these. So for the back probes, man, you can find so many different variations of these on Amazon. But the reason I really like these is because they're insulated as well as color-coded. But the main thing is the way that these are insulated, it is virtually impossible for you to cross your leads and potentially blow your PCM or blow a transistor or something while you're doing your testing, particularly when you're working with powers. Same thing with my little micro clips here. I actually got these from Radio Shack. These, by the way, you can just find, these are particularly, I believe, from Handtech, but you can get all kinds of variations of these in all kinds of angles and sizes and flexibilities on Amazon. These clips, though, are particularly my favorite. These are actually from Radio Shack. Radio Shack is actually long out of business now, so you can't get these anymore. Luckily, I have, I believe, a lifetime supply of them. The beautiful thing about these clips, again, not just that they're so small, but the alligator clips are also insulated as well. But also really nice is that they just clip right on very snugly to your multimeter leads. So they're a great way for you to clip things on and keep your multimeter leads in place, again, with them being insulated without crossing them over and potentially damaging a circuit or causing a false reading. Now, that said, these are not the point of the stocking stuffer here. The actual stocking stuffer is these probes, which have now become my new favorite. These probes actually were introduced to me by Chad, if you remember Chad from the previous video where we were doing CAN decoding and CAN diagnostics for vehicles. And he introduced me to this as the way he does his electrical testing. And Chad's way, I will admit, is a lot better. These are from DIY-HZ, I'm not quite sure. I got them from China, DIY-HZ, and these are called microelectronic experiment test leads. And if you notice, you can push on the clip and you see that the jaws are very, very fine, but also they fully retract so that there really is no possibility of crossing over. And then your multimeter test lead can just fit right in the back there. You can also, of course, apply voltage to these and things like that. These are really amazing. Let me show you. So in a typical application, if I wanted to, say, apply voltage to the solenoid, I typically would feed in my alligator clips here. There's one. And you can see my problem is that I've got to be very careful here if I'm going to connect this second lead and not have these cross. And as a matter of fact, I wouldn't be able to do it on this particular connector. Very often the way I would do this is I would have the jaw on my whatever I'm putting in, whether it's a signal or whether I'm giving it power. And then I would use a needle probe like this to very carefully touch the other pin so that I do not cross up my connections here. But check out Chad's way of doing it. So using Chad's micro clip, I can just grab right on. There's the first connector. And there's the second pin right there. And you can see there's no possibility of crossing up and doing any damage if I'm going to apply power or anything to these. The pins are fully retracted into the probe, so it's absolutely perfectly safe for any electronics testing. These are an amazing stocking stuffer. All right, there's one of my greatest secrets right there. I want to say this whole bag of 30 clips costs somewhere around $9. Would you take a look at the catalog number right there in case you are interested, but trust me, once you use these, you will probably not go back to whatever method you are currently using for probing. And speaking of making probing easier, here is a device that actually, to be honest, I have had for months now, and it actually just made its first debut on the channel in the last video when we were doing the CAN network diagnostics. This is called an OBD2 Breakout Box. Again, there are many, many, many variations of this with all kinds of various capabilities. This particular one was of interest to me because of the splitter, which allows me to connect my scan tool simultaneously while I have the breakout box. And I can do various inputs into the breakout box, look at results on the scan tool, and vice versa, of course, do bidirectionality on the scan tool, and take measurements on the breakout box. So this is actually a very nice one, and that has another couple features here. This particular model, while it's not totally necessary, does show us the active networks that are operating and also the active ports, including your pin 16 power and your signal and chassis grounds are functional. So just plugging this in, you could do some diagnostics in that regard. If you had, say, no comm or some issue like that, you might be able to just take a look right here and determine an issue. Now, obviously, you're really limited in your capability to diagnose using just the box. Obviously, in conjunction with your multimeter, your scope, we can very easily do things. For example, check termination resistance on the CAN network. So how much easier is this rather than crawling up under the dashboard? There's our 60 ohms. We know we must have two 120 ohm resistors on the network. So again, very, very handy way to be able to do some manipulations and things and do your diagnostics without crawling up under the dashboard being a contortionist. All right, there are many varieties of these that you can find, ranging in price from $30, which would just be strictly a breakout with no data outputs or anything like that, up to this model, which runs about $40. This is, I believe it's a ARCTech, ARK ARCTECH. Arctech is the manufacturer, and the model is ArcMax. This runs right about $35, something like that, and you can see the minimal data that it does give you just from plugging in. And then I've also seen some running well over $150. Those give you consistently more data, such as already reading the CAN resistance, giving you different data on frequencies of the signals, things like that. So while it doesn't replace your scope by any means, some of those can help, again, with instant diagnostics, just plugging it in if you're having network issues. So anytime I am doing anything network related or looking at any issues with an ALDL port, this device I use all the time, but just hasn't made a lot of videos. One reason also it hasn't made a lot of videos is, again, I want to show you guys so you understand these things. As you can see, the different networks are broken out for you and labeled, but I have shown you in other videos how you can just look at an ALDL pinout right there in the car, and you will be able to tell exactly which networks are available in that model of car just by looking at the pinouts. But if you didn't do your homework and study up on that, well, then this breakout box would be a lot more handy, wouldn't it? Well, here's one that I've known existed for years, but never thought I would need it, because of the easy bypass, no pun intended, but you guys have very often seen me make little concoctions like this, even with up to 4 wires, so that I could test relay ports for control and load side continuity and power and ground and things like that, while having the relay in place, so I can just very carefully take my homemade tool, make sure that I don't cross anything up. Again, that can be devastating if I get a short circuit here, especially on a computer power feed. And I'll put that into the relay port. And of course, I now have test leads that I can apply power to or measure voltages, things like that. I never thought I would need this kit, which is Lisle 69300, until one day, while working in front of a car owner, I was, of course, going to make my little contraption as I wanted to test a starter issue. And the problem is that I ran into a relay I had never seen before where it's actually skirted. So there is a plastic skirt that goes all the way around the relay and covers up the terminals. So it was impossible for me to make my little tool without cutting away that skirt on the relay. Obviously not something you want to do in front of the car's owner. So of course I had to explain exactly what I was doing, and after fixing the issue, bought a new relay, even though of course the relay wasn't the problem. That wasn't even what I was suspecting. I just wanted to test the ports. And it occurred to me, wow, maybe it is a good idea for me to have this kit, not only because it's a lot easier and safer than using my little homemade method, but definitely a much more professional appearance if you're working right in front of the car owner. So many of you guys are familiar with this. This is a relay test kit, and it allows you to do all kinds of things that, again, while I generally shun away from tools that aren't really necessary, this is more of a convenience thing. It actually was necessary when I ran into that different relay model. So the way this works is very simple. You have these relay adapters like this, but you can still plug your relay in right into the adapter, so you still have functionality with the relay as you have easy access to your load and control side test ports to input or read voltages accordingly. So let's go ahead and check this out. So as you can see, this is very timely. It turns out that also these relay ports here are also skirted, but in the actual junction box. So the same problem, but in reverse. With this skirt in the way here, if I were to wire up my relay with some test leads, positioning that relay past the skirt would be impossible. There wouldn't be clearance because the wires would pinch since it's just as wide as the relay. So this particular vehicle here just so happens to be a very practical application. In this case, I would say this tool is necessary if you were going to do some of the testing that we do, because there's no way a car owner is going to let you cut away the skirt from their junction box, right? So we're just going to insert this relay adapter, and then we just insert the relay, and this gives us the full functionality of the relay with easy access to be able to do our testing. So we could, for example, test for control side voltage and things like that. We could also go onto the load side, verify if we get load when activating the relay from inside the car. So some advantages you can do as opposed to often what you'll see me do, and that is just testing directly from the port. Sometimes you do want to see that there is a functionality with the relay in place, and you want to get those measurements. And this Lisle tool has all kinds of adapters like this. As you can see, this comes with a plethora of other stuff, including really handy relay puller, different wire adapters, as well as an on-off switch as well, which is really nice. It's also got a fused adapter as well, so you can just replace the fuses in there. I also use this for taking amp measurements as well because of the loop nature of this. So we've got another tool that's even better for that. The on-off switch, you've seen me very often make a remote starter. This on-off switch, you can just, using the adapter, easily connect right up to your load side and give power to do remote start. So while, again, not one that I use all the time like the others I've shown, there are some applications where this kit has been necessary for the particular diagnostic that I'm doing, and it's come in very handy. Again, it's Lisle 69300. Not exactly the cheapest thing in the world. I want to say this was $230. Again, a little bit hard to justify, but one of the things is I actually do use this quite a bit off camera. Again, just because it's a lot easier. It saves me time, and time is at a premium for me lately. So anything that saves me time, I will certainly consider it as a valid investment. All right, if you paid attention before on the relay tester, you noticed that I liked the fused loop that I often use for amperage measurements, but there is also a usually easier way, and that is with these little guys here called fuse buddies. These I actually do use all the time, never used them in a video, and it's just because well, it's just because the way when I do things in a video, I want to show how I'm making the connections and explain the electrical process and everything. The other thing, too, is that very often I have not needed to take amperage measurements on videos for whatever reason. But if I'm taking amperage measurements, especially off, say, like fuel pumps or something like that, this is the way to do it. And again, not a necessary tool. You can very easily just make a jumper wire that's fused, but I do have to say it is very convenient the way that they've got these already bladed for microfuses and standard fuses, and it has a little empty fuse ports. You just pull the fuse out of the circuit that you want to do the amp testing on and just plug that fuse right in here, and now you've basically got a fused jumper wire. So again, more of a convenience thing, but I actually do use these all the time. Let's go try one out. All right, watch how easy this is to do a amperage test without having to isolate wires from the motor or whatever. Just going to use the fuse. So I've pulled the fuse from the circuit we're testing, going to insert it right into the Fuse Buddy tool, and then just put the Fuse Buddy tool right in place where the fuse would go. Simply hook up my amp clamp right here, and let's activate the circuit. Well, first of all, let's get our amps measurement on there and see if we can test this motor. All right, look at that. How easy is that? Let's go ahead and capture. All right, super easy way to test the commutator health on things like fuel pumps and different motors. And man, just such a huge time saver. Keep you from going underneath the car. Just do everything right there at the fuse box. All right, super easy. Then just take the fuse back out, replace it back in. Easiest possible way to test a circuit. All right, fuse buddies. I want to say I got these from Electronic Specialties. You can also find them on Amazon, of course. And two different flavors of them. You got your standard fuse and your mini fuse. And I want to say each one costs somewhere around $11, something like that. There also, I understand, is a new version where there is a tap off of here, so you can also get a voltage reading as well. How handy is that? So I'll hope that that goes on to my Christmas wish list. As a matter of fact, I would love to have the voltage tap. That would be super handy. All right, gonna give you guys a little bit of a secret now, and that is another tool that I commonly use, but it's actually never made the video for whatever reason. Well, actually, I do know the reason. That would be these guys here, this little collection of wire probes, wire piercing probes here. All right, say at a hard to reach connector that's, you know, maybe behind the starter motor if you're doing a camshaft position sensor on a GM, something like that. Rather than remove the starter motor, which of course you will see me always doing in the videos, what I really do in real life when I'm not filming is I'll just hook that wire, pin it. When you tighten the tool, it will send a little pin through the wire, and this will allow me to then be able to do electrical testing on this wire. When done, you just simply remove it. Now, the thing is, of course, it's going to leave a little pinhole in the insulation, which I, of course, seal up with some liquid tape, some of this stuff that I use all the time. Some liquid tape, and just seal up the little pinhole that it creates. Now, there are reasons why I don't typically use these in my videos, and that is because sometimes we have enough controversy as it is with some of my methods, but one of them that really causes a controversy is poking holes in wires. You've basically got two types of people who are vehemently opposed to poking holes in wires, and that is people who have absolutely no idea whatsoever how to do any electrical testing, so they just want to, you know, kind of play the little, you know, technique Nazi or whatever and make it look like they're experts by yelling at you for poking a hole in a wire when they really have no idea what's going on. The other school of thought comes from people who very well know about electrical testing and how poking a hole in the wire can open it up to oxidation and corrosion, and not properly sealing it, and arguably even if you properly seal it, you might already start that process down the road for some other person working on the car. So there is some debate about it. I have actually been using these consistently for years and years, even on my own vehicles, never with an issue. I believe the trick is to seal up the hole really well after you are done with the probing. Something that probably not everybody does, because again, if you can't reach the wire to begin with, a lot of people aren't going to be able to seal it up effectively, right? So anyway, I do use these all the time. They are tremendous time savers. Generally, you won't see me use these in any videos just simply because I like to keep the comments clean from all of the would-be electrical Nazis that more often than not are just looking for a way to critique the technique to make themselves look smarter. They don't actually understand what we're even doing. So that's why I don't really use them in the video, but you got to have a set of these if you do a lot of automotive electrical, because otherwise you're just going to be spending hours and hours and hours even just accessing a part to test sometimes. All right, my final tool to show that I use all the time, pretty much off camera, but I don't show it too much on camera. Although this one you guys are familiar with if you've watched the channel for any length of time, and that is LOADPRO. This is such a great tool. I know there are a lot of people who don't particularly like it. Again, they fall into two categories. Those would be people who have absolutely no idea what this thing does and they tear it up. And there are people who fully know how it works and what it does, and they tear it up because they're just jealous because it's such an easy concept. They didn't think of it, to be honest with you. But most people fall into the former group, and that is they do not understand the value of it. I remember seeing a review on Amazon from a person who gave this a 1-star rating because there's no way to replace the battery. God. All right, for those of you guys that aren't familiar, the LOADPRO is basically a multimeter lead, so it just goes right onto your DVOM set of multimeter leads. The difference is you've got a button on here that when you push the button puts resistance on the circuit. You have resistance in parallel then, so you are able to read between the resistors. You will be able to get a voltage drop reading on that circuit just by pressing this button. So awesome tool. I actually use this all the time. I just don't use it on camera that much because I more want to explain the fundamentals with voltage drop using the traditional methods. But if you're not familiar with how to measure voltage drop measurement, well, LOADPRO tool makes it super easy. And if you are familiar with how to do it, it makes it even easier, in my opinion. Let's go try it out real quick. All right, so I actually do have a couple of diagnostic videos with actual application of a diagnostic application for LOADPRO where it really did actually find the issue. I'm not going to have an issue on this car though, but I just want to demonstrate it. So we just set the LOADPRO up just like your normal diagnostic leads. Gonna set one up here. Just going to test a lighting circuit real quick. Should have 12 volts. Probably would help if I turned the key on for this particular circuit. All right, you see we got our battery voltage. Here's our little button right here. When I push the little red button, we're going to get voltage drop measurement. You see that we've got, well, there's a little bit of voltage drop on this one. Just about 10%. Not nearly enough that it would be an issue, but certainly that would be helpful if we were diagnosing some type of low amperage problem or something like that. But just pushing that button, you can get your voltage drop. Again, the circuit must be loaded in order to do that. All right, how easy was that? All right, the LOADPRO is only $50, and you can get it right off of Amazon. Make sure you get the red one here. I think there's a couple of rip-off ones, but you want to show some support to the developer of this tool. His name is Daniel Sullivan. He's a electrical engineer that actually has a YouTube channel that's actually pretty good. And I know that he's had some challenges since launching the LOADPRO, but just want to try to show him some support. He also has a little book on troubleshooting too, as well. As a matter of fact, I believe there is another version of a LOADPRO for something like $65 that also includes his electrical troubleshooting book. I want to find that comment if I can. Now, well, I couldn't find the comment I wanted about not being able to replace the battery. He probably removed it. That was classic, but this one's just as good. 1-star review, threw it in the trash. Couldn't figure it out, though I read and reread the directions. Must be me. Yeah, James, it's you. All right, guys, you can probably tell my voice is getting a little hoarse, so probably time for me to take a break and continue recovering from surgery. But I hope you enjoyed this little tool special. As most of you guys who view the channel regularly well know, there are plenty of other tools that I use all the time, but I wanted to try to show ones more that don't get as much visibility. So things like my scan tool, Auto Ingenuity, I use just about every video. You guys are well familiar with that one. And of course, I've got, 3 oscilloscopes now. Can't beat that Pico, quite honestly. So you guys see those all the time, though. I was just trying to show you some kind of behind the scenes tools a little more. But anyway, hopefully you guys have a very, very Merry Christmas, and I hope you get a lot of cool automotive tools. If you do, let me know what you got, and maybe I'll look into that myself as well. So hope you enjoyed this, and don't forget, coming up will be the Where Are They Now video. So any questions that you have about any previous repairs that I've done, any questions you have about the channel in general, stuff like that, ask them here, and we'll follow it up on that holiday special. Should be a real treat for you guys who are really hardcore followers of the channel. All right, happy holidays. We'll see you soon.